Hello and welcome back to the Framed podcast. I genuinely cannot believe I'm about to say this, but last night I attended the world premiere for Christopher Nolan's newest fully IMAX film, The Odyssey. And I thought I would record this review episode, directly after, even though you won't see it for a little bit, because the thoughts are in my mind and I'm still absolutely blown away by everything that I witnessed. I wanted to first talk about the event itself, because I've never been to anything of this scale. At first, I was thinking, Christopher Nolan, right? A huge IMAX fan, and The Odyssey is going down in history as being the first film completely filmed in IMAX. So I was thinking, where would the premiere for this be? In my head, I'm thinking the BFI IMAX. That makes sense, right? But no, apparently, it was going to be Odeon in Leicester Square. But very soon after, I figured out why, and that's because he wanted to show us the 70mm cut. So attending the world premiere was absolutely incredible. Not just had they decked the floor out in being half sea, half sand, they had big posters from the film, they had a full-size Trojan horse, which absolutely dominated the whole of Leicester Square for the last few days, which, if anything, is press amongst itself. But beyond that, you truly see the size and the power of the fans that are behind a Nolan franchise. Not just, obviously, Nolan, but also all of the people that are involved. I've been to many premieres in my time, but it was just absolutely massive. I've never seen the piles of crowds outside hoping to catch a glimpse at, who knows, Spider-Man, Batman. Honestly, just anyone you could think of, they were going to be there. So the first thing I had to kind of get my head past was the actual attending of the event, which was just absolutely groundbreaking. Just walking arm's reach away from Anne Hathaway, Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson is just almost unreal. It just doesn't make sense, and it feels so crazy to say. But being able to go and sit in that cinema amongst other people that appreciate the film and really understand the piece of history that is being made is just something that you can't write. And I can honestly say this might have been potentially the biggest moment in terms of my film that I've ever been to. Getting onto the film is even more scary because I am still, 12 hours later, even lost for words as to what to speak about when it comes to the Odyssey. The first thing you're looking at is that runtime, right? It's 2 hours, 50, whatever, nearly 3 hours. And that's scary. As a film lover, we can get through it, but it's still hard, right? Like, no one likes sitting with their legs cramped on a flight. So why would you like to do it in a cinema unless it's super comfy and you are being entertained? And the last big scale film of this size to me was actually probably Nolan. It was probably Oppenheimer, and that 3 hour runtime, I'm not going to lie, I did feel like it was hard for me. Absolutely brilliant film, but I felt cooped. I really did. But that is the first thing I'm going to say about the Odyssey, is that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen once. Sitting in that cinema, watching the entire 20 plus cast come on that, like, below the screen, being introduced by Nolan himself is just, it's hard to even comprehend. Then to have it introduced and to watch the Odyssey before its release is something amazing. Yes, I didn't see it in IMAX, and I will 100% be going back to watch it as it was made to be, but being able to see it on 70mm is very, very cool. The first thing I want to say about this is this episode will be coming out when spoilers are available, so expect to hear everything that I can think of and everything I can remember and everything that I loved about Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, obviously, was the runtime, which was not bad in any way. Like I said, almost pushing 3 hours is a concern in most other forms, but at this, I was not bored at any point. You jump straight into the action, you end on the action, and everything in between is an absolute masterpiece into the storytelling of Homer's Odyssey. We then tap into the actors, right? That's what's selling this film. They are probably the collection of the biggest actors out there today. But that can be a problem, right? When you've got that many people of that much size, how much screen time do they have? How much do you balance that out? Who's better than the other? And truly, I don't think there was that problem at all during this film. I think everyone's character was equally balanced to represent them as not just the character that they're playing, but them as the size of the actor. Obviously, Odysseus, played by Matt Damon, gets most of the screen time, which we expect, right? He's literally the main character. But, talking about people like Anne Hathaway or Tom Holland or Robert Pattinson that never leave the original castle, you're worried, are they going to get enough screen time? But no, it's still there and they still give the performances that you wish. My shout outs for this film in terms of the acting ability definitely goes down to Robert Pattinson. Although, he is not on that cruise, he's not on that adventure. All of his emotion and acting ability is from being able to sit in one room and perform in such a simple scenario. But he absolutely wipes the floor with every emotion that he has to give. The subtle smirks in his face, the tears, the anger is just, there's a reason why he's Batman. Do you know what I mean? The performance reminded me a lot of Mickey 17, being able to switch between the different emotions to see whether this guy is evil or good or has good intentions, but absolutely incredible. And something in a previous interview I saw with Kevin McCarthy with Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland was referencing Anne Hathaway's ability to be able to distinguish her acting ability between being able to talk across the room and talk between the screen between them. Again, this might not mean anything until you've seen that film, but Anne Hathaway spends a lot of time talking between a see-through screen and the rest of the room, acknowledging her presence and, power as the queen. But there is a clear definition between her being able to talk with the doors open and being able to talk with the doors closed. There is a sense of power that the queen is still feeling after almost 20 years of not having Odysseus by her side. And that takes talent, right? That's pretty damn incredible. We move into Tom Holland, who has quotably said that this feels like the end of a chapter to his acting ability, and that it is potentially the next stage into his life of more serious acting other than kind of like Spider-Man and stuff. And although I would say that he is, I'm not going to say the weakest of the cast, he is still incredible as an actor. But when you put him next to, levels next to Matt Damon and Robert Pattinson and Anne Hathaway, he's still a field dwarfed, but you can definitely see that there is progressive direction in his work. Which excites me for, the future. He's landed a Nolan film on what could genuinely be the biggest Nolan film of all time. So hats off to that, man. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't say much about that. But we get into the film itself, right? How much does it correlate to the book and how much does it keep you interested? And that is where this film absolutely shines. The film is able to lay out the storyline, telling it from the end, talking backwards on the past and allowing you to relive, the destruction of Troy, seeing the Trojan horse, and then reliving the journey back from Troy for Odysseus to get back home. And that is where truly this film is just insane. Every single piece of the adventure that they cross, from the sea, from the watching the rain absolutely destroy that boat, watching the actors being thrown and hurled, watching the lighting that is thrown around in the storms from Zeus's thunder, to landing on the islands and getting that full IMAX power of the locations that they are shooting on. Obviously, if you are aware of Homer's Odyssey, you are aware that there is mythical beasts on this journey back. There are cyclopses, there are giants, there are witches, there are whirlpools, and Nolan does not skip away from any of them. From what we saw in the trailer, I can confidently say that is literally the first half an hour of the film. There is so much that has yet to be seen, which is exactly what you want, right? It is beautiful. And knowing that a lot of these were practical effects, we see in the trailer, we see the Cyclops enter. But when you live that Cyclops scene in that film, it's unreal. At first, I was like, God, it's too dark. I wish they'd brightened this film. And very quickly, I realized this is on purpose. This is completely on purpose. It's to signify the fear that these men are going through in that cave, the little power they have towards the Cyclops. And then to learn that they made this Cyclops out of a practical robot is, oh, it's awesome. It's genuinely awesome. And watching the acting ability around an animatronic and the pure fear on their faces and the strategy of the Greek Empire is blows your mind. Genuinely blows your mind. Absolutely incredible. We move on to different genres of the film. Not just does it cover, adventure and mythological stories, but something I was not expecting was the horror element that they added into this film. There is a certain scene with them returning and they stop off an island, they meet a witch, and the witch transforms and makes these horrible soldiers into what they truly are. She makes them into pigs, they make them into beasts. And watching her mold and shape the faces into these beasts is none other than just genuinely horrific. But my God, what a scene. I've never seen a cinema sit in silence while they watch this grotesque transformation take place into what is a pivotal part of this story. There is so much to talk about this film that I don't know genuinely where to start. It's such a long film that it requires a rewatch, and only after having that singular watch at the moment, it's hard to actually remember the power that this film holds, and it's hard to even talk to you guys about because there's just so much to weigh into this. Something I took away from the film, other than, crazy acting abilities and the cinematography, for me, the power of this film was actually the sound. And, I could have put it down to, the cinema had the volume too high, but it definitely was not that. There were scenes in this, the Cyclops cry, the storm thunderclaps. There were things in that I've never seen a cinema move. And what I mean by that is the vibrations that the cinema caused. In not a negative way, not in this film is too loud, more as in the power that this film felt. I literally was speaking to someone that referenced their sunglasses vibrating off the table up onto the floor. To me, that's a Jurassic Park moment. Watching that, the T-Rex make the water vibrate. That's cinema. It was a masterpiece of a film, and I am honored to be there as part of that world premiere because I'm waiting to see what this film can achieve. I'm waiting for the awards that flood in. Christopher Nolan has already gone down as a legendary director and already has all the awards under the sun that you could ever want. And I think this film might top that. I think Oppenheimer was an absolute masterpiece, but what it does is it limited to the niche of who would enjoy this sort of film. Oppenheimer isn't a rewatch. You don't just chuck it on when you eat dinner. And to be fair, with a 2 hour 50 runtime, neither is the Odyssey, but the Odyssey would be a lot easier to chuck on and have an obvious rewatch, not just to see the performances of some of the best actors today, but also to see a piece of history being made with, a fully IMAX shot film and a legendary mythical tale that is still famous all these years later. The Odyssey is, without doubt, a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10, whatever you want to give it. See, I'm very stubborn when it comes to Letterboxd reviews. I can confidently say I've probably given less than 10 films a 5-star in just ever. And it's a lot that makes me think what could be a 5. And a lot of them I appreciate our personal taste, but this film it's a piece of history. And I think that's why it does have to be appreciated with the reviews it gets. It deserves all the nominations that it receives, and it deserves all the compliments that it can get. And I truly believe that this film is going to be, it will be in your Letterboxd top 4. And I'm genuinely amazed and excited to see what this film will give you, because what it gave me was not just an incredible evening, but a hell of a lot to ponder and to think about. So I'm very excited for you to see it. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the Framed podcast as always. If anyone is listening on the Spotify app, make sure you swipe up and give us your thoughts. If not, we will be back next week with a brand new episode. Thank you very much for tuning into the Frame podcast. And I am very excited for you to go and watch Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey.